Hello, dear friends of freedom. What you will hear now is a short interview with Sergei Gureev. Gureev is an expert on the Russian regime and particularly on the Russian economy. He was a professor of economics and a rector at Moscow's new economics school until he resigned on the 30th of April 2013 and fled to France. Now he is a professor of economics and a provost at the Paris Institute of Political Studies. So in
Владимир
regards to
Путин
Putin,
вот сейчас, spустя
now
8 месяцев, больше
after
8 месяцев
more than
выбрать
eight
себя
months
следует.
of his invasion,
Почему
have you found an
вообще
answer why he
пошел на это
decided to make this
вторжение?
step?
Потому что многие,
Because
даже
many
те,
people,
кто
even those who
давно,
have studied Putin
скажем
for
так,
decades, have
изучает
said
Владимира
that Putin
Путина,
will just
это
threaten and
было
blackmail as always
неожиданностью. Но
and did not
все-таки
expect that he would
Путин про
actually
шантаж,
invade.
про
What is your
напугать,
opinion? Why did
а
he
тут
do that?
действительно полномасштабное
Do you have
вторжение.
an
Вы
explanation for
сейчас
why he
вспоминайте,
decided to start
объясните
this
себе,
full-scale
почему он на это
war?
пошел.
Well, of course, we cannot look into his head and say what his actual motives are, but I can tell you what I think about this situation. In 2014, Putin decided to annex Crimea in order to improve his rating in Russia. Putin's rating was still quite high before the '08 crisis, and after the financial crisis, the Russian economy just stopped growing. After this crisis, Putin's way of governing Russia completely ruined Russian economic growth up until 2013, when Russia's economic growth rate became very low. After this time frame, Putin's rating, as it is usual with this kind of regimes, has fallen to the level at which it is right now, 60%. This is based on the data of the Levada social poll agency. It has been 80 and it went down to 60. Then Putin invaded Ukraine in 2014. This was a quick maneuver, and Putin's rating grew up to 90%. And precisely this reaction from the Russian society has taught Putin that he has this magic trick. He realized that Russian citizens who learned history from Soviet textbooks actually think that it's a good idea to invade and steal someone else's territory. But sooner or later, this fog of illusion in Russians' minds began to disappear. We have seen that it started to disappear in 2017. And this is partly also thanks to the effort of your team and the work of the Anti-Corruption Fund of Alexei Navalny, as well as his YouTube channel that gathered a large amount of attention and disturbed the work of the Russian propaganda machine. Further on, Putin's popularity was harmed by his so-called pension reform, in which he raised the retirement age to 65. But in general, I would say that the citizens just started asking questions. Okay, we have Crimea, but where are our incomes? Where are our pensions? Why are our salaries still 10% lower than they have been in 2013? And it became harder and harder for Putin to answer those questions. A separate story is what happened in 2020 during the pandemic, and the fact that Putin did not want to help his people, while at the same time Alexei Navalny has created a five-step program which defined that that much money has to be spent for people who suffer under the pandemic. This was also a blow to Putin's rating, and at that time, Putin's rating was at a historic low. There were even months where Putin's rating was even lower than 60% based on the Levada social polls. So Putin needed to do something about it. So he decided to poison Alexei Navalny, and when that didn't work out, he just imprisoned him. But this also didn't increase the average salaries. This is why you, as a member of Navalny's team, are also doing an important job of explaining Russians why their salaries aren't rising anymore. So apparently Putin decided that he just needs a new Crimea scenario. He planned that he could just attack Ukraine and manage to exchange the Kiev government to a loyal government within a week or so, so that his inner rating could grow back to 90% or so. So this is basically the problem that he tried to solve. Some people say that if you sit in isolation for 2 years, like Putin did, this can have a serious effect on your brain structure. That's also a story I heard. But in general, the story is pretty simple. Putin underestimated the resistance of the Ukrainians. Putin overestimated the quality of his army. Putin underestimated the unity and determination of the collective West. He partly underestimated the West's willingness to intervene because of what happened in Afghanistan in 2021. The pullout from Afghanistan was understood by Putin like a sign of weakness from the West. And this wrong assumptions by Putin have made him think that this will be just another 2014. So he made this mistake. Dictators tend to make mistakes, first and foremost because they do not receive any honest feedback, because they often don't have any critical counselors, and because there's no political opposition that could criticize him or investigate corruption in the military and so on. And Putin created all those issues himself with his own hands. He destroyed independent mass media, he destroyed civil society in Russia, and he created a system where he is surrounded by people who tell him how great he is. And all this has led to him making this mistake. Thank you very much
Спасибо,
for
что
explaining
вы
your
всё
version on
всё
why Putin
рассказали.
has decided
Про
to
говоря про
launch a
Путина, ещё
full-scale
в
invasion.